you are hoping to plan a new event, or if you're just hoping to check out kind of some possibilities of what hybrid could look like for you, this is definitely the place to be. Thanks you guys for continuing to engage in the chat. We're really excited to help you guys find a direction of sorts, let's hope, just because we know that this is such a new and difficult world to navigate. So unfortunately, you're not going to get to see me do all the talking, and maybe that's actually going to be pretty fortunate because Drew is our expert here. Just so you know, my role at Trellis is working with all of our fantastic partners and running this webinar series. So I work with our event planners, our auctioneers, and that just to bring more charities education and content around what to do for their fundraisers and events. Drew is actually our longest standing partner ever, so it's very exciting to get to do our now second webinar with Drew. So Drew has actually done the most events of any of our partners through Trellis as well, which is very exciting to see his excitement for the platform and all the creative ways that his team, who you'll meet in a second, has used our platform. So just so you know, you are in very good hands in the virtual and hybrid world here, because Drew actually did one of, if not the first, massive virtual event once COVID hit last year. It was a stay-at-home gala that first was local and then went nationwide. And I know my team learned a lot when he was doing this with Trellis, and I know his team has learned a lot since with the many more events that they've done and the millions of dollars that they have raised through some very creative and engaging events. So enough about me. I will say hi at the end once we get into some more questions, but I'm going to pass it over to Drew, and he is going to take you through just how to make something magical in your hybrid events.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emily, and thank you for everybody to join today. Obviously, we're very passionate about virtual and hybrid events, and happy to share some of the tips and tricks to help you really make something happen in a fun and virtual space. So today, talk a little bit about our team, just so you can know a bit about us. Then let's jump right into virtual and hybrid events. What is a hybrid event? The keys to success for them, the pitfalls, and I really need to stress those pitfalls. Some case studies and examples. We've got a bit of an offer for everybody today for joining us. And then we'll jump into Q&A, have an opportunity to have those discussions. And then after the event, so we know some people have a little bit more time than others, after we get through everything, then we're just going to jump into a live case study. So we did this last time and it was a lot of fun, but if anybody here has an idea for an event that they're thinking about for a hybrid event, drop it in the chat. Emily's going to be keeping an eye open up for it. And then at the end, we can actually jump in, bring you on screen, and we'll talk about your event and ways that maybe we can help convert that into a hybrid event, just so that everybody sees kind of the thought process behind it. So our team, so my background is in large events. So I worked with Ironman for many years, a triathlon company, Challenge, another international triathlon company, TED, Motion Ball, and a whole host of local and regional events. Tim's our producer. He's from Vancouver. Tim's actually in negotiations with a major broadcast company right now to pick up his pilot of a TV show. So Tim comes at the angle of what is the screen going to see? What is this going to translate in a virtual space for everybody watching? And Katie's kind of the right hand of stay-at-home fundraising. So Katie comes in from the fundraising side, but also a lot of our support side. So that's our core team. We have a few more members that are kind of a little bit more behind the scenes, but just always good to show the people behind it. So as Emily mentioned, came up with the idea last year, about a year ago now. So March 16th, I came up with the idea for a stay-at-home gala. And after some consideration and thinking about it, we launched into it. And the idea was really big, but let's test it out. So we took 11 days from idea to the event happening, and just wanted to see how it would translate, see if it was worth pursuing something on a larger scale. So after 11 days, we were able to raise close to $23,000. We were able to have a lot of fun and just provide somebody for our community a chance for them to connect to each other, and for a chance for everybody to have something to look forward to. It was the really early days of COVID and a lot of uncertainty. That launched into our national stay-at-home gala. So that one, if you think about the national news and the local news, we hosted the national news. We put together a broadcast with some star-studded lineup, brought people in, and then each community, we coached them on how to host their own local broadcast. So each community had their own fundraiser, had their own elements, own speakers, and wildly different all across Canada. And we saw really good success with that. And we were able to raise just over $500,000. And that's what really kicked off Stay at Home fundraising. So some of the things we learned through last year, we do a really incredible amount of research from all of our events. We try to ask really poignant survey questions. And one of the questions we added towards the end of last season was, how do you feel about virtual events? And I was very surprised to see that 85% of the attendees were positive or neutral about virtual events. And some of the responses they gave were geography. I know a lot of you have maybe a regional collection or maybe a much larger reach. A lot of our national partners, it's the first time that people are able to attend their events. Otherwise, it's only held in a couple of cities and people miss out. So that was our biggest response. Time commitment. I used to attend a whole host of events, and it's just a really big drain on you. Each one's a few hours, travel, getting to and from, all of those. So virtual ends up being a little bit simpler. A lot of them are excited about a better use of funds. So the cost of putting on a virtual event is substantially lower than an in-person event. So people were excited to see that more of their dollars were going to the charitable needs. Some people say, I worded this delicately, they only came to support the charity. What they actually said was that they didn't really like the event in the first place. They just came because they love the charity. And so, it was an interesting one to learn. And then we actually had a good chunk of people saying that they had more fun. They felt more engaged. They felt like they were a part of the event, and they were really very involved. And a big thing that we do is we're not just a streaming company. We really jump in and we place a lot of emphasis on the design of the event. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's look at virtual events are very different than in-person events, and they need to be treated so. And the thing we always say is stop thinking about an event and start thinking about a broadcast. And if you can bridge that gap and start thinking about the fact that you now have different opportunities, some things aren't possible, some new things are possible. And then to follow that up, hybrids are completely different than just virtual or in-person events. And we'll go into that today and hopefully give some of you some tips and tricks on how to go about those. But really critical to early on change your mindset. You're going to be a lot happier and your event's going to be a lot more successful. So before we go into just hybrid, let's talk quickly about virtual. And I apologize to everybody that's here from our last one. This will be a really abridged version of it. But the keys to virtual success is engagement, having some good income streams, and then your MC selection. And I'm just going to really briefly touch on these. So first, you need to innovate your sponsor package. When we talk about that engagement piece, sponsors and attendees are so critical. And if you can create really good sponsor moments, sponsors are going to be a much larger component of your donations. And it's never been easier to get funds from sponsors right now. A lot of them are doing very well, and there aren't as many events. There's not as many things. And if you come with a good sponsor package, you're going to get much faster sign off than you ever did before. So we're actually seeing our partners getting more dollars and more sponsors, and that's making up a big chunk of those donations. So if you can really be thoughtful about that. So we've got some numbers there of how it went, but build new opportunities and bring them into the show. Don't place their logo anywhere. Just really, the logos don't really matter, and they know that. They want to be seen, but they want to be heard. So if you can invite them into the show, whether that's them giving awards away, having them sponsor donor blitzes and moments where people are donating, just get them engaged into the show in ways that it doesn't feel forced. Understand attention spans. And this is one of the complex pieces with hybrid events especially, but virtually, I'm sure that you've already checked an email or picked up your phone or wanted to. In person, there's social stigmas that keep you focused. Virtually, you don't get that. So limit your events to 60 to 90 minutes. Try to make sure that you're really engaging people. We've got a couple of key tips here. Active participation. If somebody hasn't touched their computer or phone to engage with the show, then you've missed an opportunity to really connect them into it. Keep it celebratory. Don't make it heavy. Don't make it sad. Keep it really exciting. People are a lot more excited about being a part of this that way. Virtual, people tune out really quick if you go too heavy for too long. Keep it powerful and short and break it up with lots of clips. People are going to be lost at certain points of your show, but if they're short 3 to 5 minute segments, then you can really bring them into the engagement. And create FOMO. So one of our numbers here that we're very proud of, and we honor that with incredible focus, is we survey, would you attend this event again? And the lowest ranking we've ever had is 92%. And that comes from trying to make sure that they had a very good time, because we want you to be able to run your second event. And I hope everybody today takes that away of the design and the experience is what's going to create your second event. It's really going to be the thing that gives you long-term success. We do this with magic moments, home deliveries, bringing people on screen in certain times. You can just do a lot of things with it. The magic moments, the one that we always talk about, it's a fan favorite. Is we have somebody drive around town, they show up at somebody's front steps, and then we bring them in live. And so we've got a city councilor carrying a gift basket, thanking the sponsor that's driving them, walking up somebody's front steps. While that person's watching, they see them walking up their steps. So they kind of do that, poke their head out the door and see the fact that they're a part of the show. And even if you don't win, just being a part of that and knowing that you're at home, but you're really cared about it being home and people are trying to make this good for you. It's so simple. You do 2 of those and people are dramatically excited about it. And there's a lot of value that comes there. So very quick run through on the engagement side of virtual events. Let's talk about hybrid events now. So there's kind of 3 broad categories that exist right now of hybrid events. The in-person plus, so you've got a contingent, maybe a smaller number of people. They're sitting at home or sitting in person watching the event, and then you're broadcasting and participating in from home. And that's where we're going to talk a lot about today. The other ones are variants beyond that, or that add on that. Your multi-locations, so maybe you've got people watching in this penthouse and in this conference center, and you've got small groups in a bunch of places, but they're all watching the same thing, but you're bringing components of the show to each one. That'll kind of be spelled out a little bit in our in-person plus, and then your watch parties. So these organically happen already. Hey, we're going to participate in this event. Do you want to come over and watch it with us? And people sit and have dinner. It's just being a little bit more thoughtful and helping people succeed at doing those. So let's talk a bit about kind of the hybrid mistakes. If there's one slide that I can stress today, once it's all out, I'll give you the cue to take a screenshot, just whatever happens. This is the critical piece. So the number one thing, and everybody that wants to run a hybrid event and approaches us, it's always like, well, we can run an in-person event and we'll stream it and we'll get more people and we'll make more money. And that is likely not going to happen, because your experience, you're just being reminded you're not at the event if you just stream it, especially if you stream it from far away. You need to create an event that really brings people in. And that brings us, into it, like avoid the big stage. Now, if you've only got 30, 50 people in person and a huge stage, it's actually going to feel fairly small and it feels odd. I don't know if anybody watched the Golden Globes this year, but they did kind of a hybrid model and they had people there and it was shiny and fancy. And then they had people participating in from home. They did a good job of bringing people in from home, but it did feel awkward for the people that were there. And there's just a half dozen tables and they're sitting there and what used to be an enormous auditorium, it was different. So think about how it's going to look and feel. If your stage is twice the size of the amount of people there, it's going to feel awkward. And you're also going to see this from home and feel very different. The thing that makes virtual special is the intimacy that happens. If you're streaming from your living room and the CEO of a major company is also streaming from their living room, we're all equal, we're all impacted. So just be conscious of how you're experiencing this on both sides. Think virtual first. So if you design an event for people and then figure out how to work in the virtual side, the in-person side is actually quite easy. If you give people some entertainment, some food, some drink, and some seats, a lot of it organically happens. People talk, people enjoy. That part's actually quite easy. Think virtual first. How are people at home going to participate? And you'll see interesting areas and new ways that the in-person people can engage with that as well. Make sure that the in-person people feel a part of the virtual experience. So having your screen up and having people being able to engage in the chat and having people be able to post pictures and bringing them on screen. And you need to let people know that while they're watching this event, there's something greater beyond them that's also happening. And that generates a lot of excitement. Imagine being seen on TV at the Super Bowl or a major event. These things are kind of where you can start to separate and create some good elements for everybody. And it's a lot of fun. So really, if you can bring the in-person people into the virtual event, that's where you can really create some excitement. And then the most important, well, maybe they're all the most important, but plan 2 event flows for in-person and virtual. And that's where we're going to start to separate today to talk about in-person and hybrid, some of the differences and how you create the overlap of the event, but how you honor the fact that everybody's going to have a different experience, and just really making sure that that's taken care of. So a moment here, if anybody wants to take a screenshot, and we'll move on to our next slide. So a hybrid event is not one event. A hybrid event is 2 events with some level of overlap. The more the overlap, the better. But just understand that people have different experiences, whether they're virtual or in person. And I'm going to say it 100 times, and I apologize for being, coming out with that so many pieces, but that's the critical difference. We've designed countless virtual events, and we've all been to countless in-person events. This is a new experience of how do you bridge those in, because you can't have a big long event for in-person people and honor the fact that at home, well, now you're just participating. So we're going to talk about the kind of key areas of hybrid event success. So this is just a short list of the components to hybrid events. We will really want you to think about these as the key areas, and it really starts day 1 when you register for the event. You should absolutely make sure that everybody's getting different communication. And this one seems simple, but when you register for the event and you get an email saying that the event's in this date, and you want to set people up for success. And we used to say you needed to worry about how people got home from the event. That was always the big worry, safe ride home, things like that. Now you need to know how people get to the virtual event and set people up for success. It's like showing up to a networking event you thought was going to have food and it didn't have food, or vice versa. You want to know just enough about the event so you can show up in the way that you need to succeed. And it starts off with really communicating with both of those audiences in a different fashion and letting people know those experiences. So if you're going to do a cooking component at home and not in person, those emails need to be very different. And we'll talk about some of the elements coming up on fun examples of the events. The vantage point. So if you are at an in-person event, you're okay sitting there and watching someone up on stage, and you see them and they talk and you hear it, and maybe there's a big screen. If you're in person at home, you get a new vantage point on the event, and be thinking carefully about that. Most of the events, if not all, there's a few exceptions, have been for our events. They've come from somebody streaming off of a phone, off of a computer. You get this really unique experience of them talking directly to you. Right now, I'm looking at the camera, and each one of you is receiving that coming back. That's such an important thing with virtual, is to not understate the importance of keeping that tight connection to someone's head. Do not do a long locked off camera where you see the whole person. We did an event, we had a celebrity, they were sitting by a fire. The camera angle was the whole fire, and it was this big thing, and you couldn't see the person very clearly, and you lost what makes virtual special. So just really be mindful of 2 audiences the whole way through here. And your vantage point is going to be really critical to that. So your AV and technology. So this is where you can start to make some really fun connections with it. So we always say BYOD, bring your own device. The people at the event, tell them to get their phone out, invite them to participate in the chat, post pictures, bring the pictures up on the big screen, bring pictures from people at home up on the big screen. You can really create some fun and exciting pieces by being thoughtful about the fact that we now have technology integrated into these events in a way we never have before. So that goes with, and we'll talk a little bit about auctions coming up, but all of these pieces are going to be really important to look at for a hybrid event, and just those 2 different lenses that are going to lend into that. So the attendee journey. So we talked about the length of an event and the experience people are going to have. you're going to create two events that have a moment where they connect. And that moment's probably an hour, hour and a half. You can bring people in there and they can have a lot of connection and fun, but really think about it and put yourself in those people's shoes. And we do focus sessions when we're doing hybrid. We put our whole team and we say, okay, from a virtual side, you get these emails, you get this. We walk through the whole process to think about what that's like. From an in-person side, we walk through that whole process. And then you look at it from a higher level and you say, okay, well, what areas can we actually bridge those? But you need to think about these two separate journeys so that they get to be the focus of the event. You never want somebody virtual or in person to feel like they're at somebody else's event. So just be mindful of that. And again, we're going to talk about some examples coming up. I know that this is a bit broad-based right now, but these are kind of the components that you want to consider. The length. So you have 60 to 90 minutes for virtual. In person, people may want more time, more open networking, more, but you can't just say, well, that's the end of the event and turn on the lights and have music playing. You need to plan the event to continue on, but the virtual people to continue on their own journey. We use some really fun networking software. People can walk around rooms and talk to each other virtually, and their cameras and microphones are on, and there's a circle that you can hear around you, and you can walk away from people and not hear them anymore. And well, in person gets that organically, so they're not going to participate in that. But choose a moment and have people bridge out into their own journeys, but really honor the length. Because if you try to do a 45-minute or a 60-minute live event, that's a lot of work for me to get dressed up, show up, participate, and then it to be over. You need to be thoughtful about what's going to happen after the virtual part ends for the in-person attendees and vice versa. Unique moments. So we talk about sponsorship, and a lot of our focus goes into sponsorship because it's a huge revenue source. But one of our events, so we're working with a firefighters charitable society, and people at home are going to be cooking. People in person are going to be provided food. So how do you bridge those? So we've actually done it, and the sponsors are going to participate in a cutting competition, a chopping, like a culinary show competition. And they're going to be doing some fun stuff, and people at home are going to be cooking. And you're going to really make this exciting moment happen where you're streaming it and you're bringing people in from home to watch it, but also bringing them onto the screen. And again, bridging that in there. We talked about the home deliveries, highly recommend employing those into them, but just really think about what are those unique moments that now bring them together. Again, broken record, bring them together all day long, but this is really some critical pieces to make sure that you're successful. Auctions, just a simple tip here. So don't make it difficult for people to give you money. We always say give them an invitation to give, and auctions can be a ton of fun. They actually build on the evening. Even if you're not making a ton of money on each item, they're a fun component of the evening as long as they're good quality. But when you're in person, you may not want to use the app. Trellis, and we're not affiliated. We don't get any kickbacks from Trellis. They're just the best platform we've found. But the ability to have Trellis up on the screen and have their live auction running and have our auctioneer auctioning items and people bidding on home, and it says Drew Vincent is now in the lead and has bid this much, that's exciting. But the in-person people, they might just want to raise their hand. You might give them paddles. You might do something that's more exciting. All you need to do is have a couple of people watching. We call them watchers. They sit at a desk, they've got laptops, and they're registered into the bidding as the in-person bids. And they just go in, they click, and then on the screen it says Drew Vincent has virtually donated, and it just says in-person has just donated, and it's this amount. So you can kind of bring that up into there and make sure that you're giving everybody the consideration they deserve. And then food and beverage. So this is always the most involved portion of most of our virtual events. This is something that takes time, consideration, and it can be very complex and it can be very simple. For a lot of it, if you just want to say to everybody at home, go and check out this restaurant, they've got some deals, or grab dinner and participate. That's the easy end. Hot food delivered, that's the hard end. Cooking shows and culinary components, those tend to be the sweet spot for us. We have one event coming up, and everybody's going to cook with a celebrity chef ahead of time at home. They get to participate, and they say, okay, at this time, tune in. We're going to lead you through it, have everything prepped this way, and then throw it in the oven at 550. And then throw this thing in the oven at 610. The show starts at 6:30. We kick it off, the introductions. At the event, people are going to get their food. You need to allow them to eat and talk to each other and a lull in the show. At home, if they aren't cooking, you don't want to have just nothing happening. So you want to honor that. But then if they are cooking, how do you bring those out? So the food is actually going to be ready at the same time. And so our speaker will come out and our celebrity chef and saying, everybody here, your food's coming out. Thank you. This is what you're eating. At home, we're going to actually finish this with you. And it's so in person, they're not having to focus on it. They're getting to enjoy, and maybe it will be entertaining. But then at home, they're actually going to eat at the same time. And again, we're bringing everybody together for a shared experience. And then we'll have a little bit of music and provide a lull for people. You used to have a half an hour to eat. Now you're going to want to shrink down the time in person where it's 10 minutes for you to really get into your food. And you can keep eating as the show continues, but you don't want to have a half an hour break for people that are virtual. And this is a very challenging balance in here to make sure that you're honoring that. So much like a good wedding DJ has a flow to the evening, so it's not always so exciting. You need to give people those breaks. When food comes out, allow people in person to be able to enjoy and chat and talk. But maybe it's 5 or 10 minutes where they're really starting to eat their food. And then after that, then you're going to go in and start building it back up again. No jarring flow within how you do virtual events. Try to just make it flow nice and easily. So some examples of hybrid events, and then we'll jump into Q&A. So the in-person with virtual spectators. Again, this is the gala event with a gala in a box at home. This is a lot of what we talked about tonight or today. This is the, probably the most common one that we're seeing, and what I think a lot of you are going to be looking to do as we start to open up again here. Multi-venue events. So these can be really fun. So one of these that we're talking about right now is a picnic at the park. So a bunch of different parks, a big screen at each park. Everybody gets to sit down, distanced. It's relatively safe and easy, and you can just make something fun happen. Mobile events. So this is where people are actually rotating around to different venues, kind of musical chairs idea. So this one, we have one Walk the Town, a bunch of different restaurants, and they've set up socially distanced opportunities for people to come by, grab their food, some music playing in each location, but then you kind of move to the next location, and you just have to scale the amount of venues to the amount of people and just make sure that you're really distanced. A scavenger drive-in. So this is one that I actually did this years ago. And now we've got a little bit better technology to do it, but you can go out and organize a car scavenger hunt. So people are out, they're getting out, they're in their cars, everything's safe and a lot of fun. But then you meet at a spot that has really good Wi-Fi. So a college, university, those are really good opportunities. They park in the parking lot, and then you can actually deliver them popcorn, snacks, treats, whatever, while they tune into this broadcast from their laptop in their car and be able to participate. You can have some in-person entertainment, things like that. This one's relatively easy to do, and it'll make headlines. And the number one thing you need to do with your event design is make headlines. Watch parties. So we're doing one or building one right now where it's the beer awards, and people will be able to participate. And it says, go pick up all these beers. Even better if you can do a mix pack. Get some food. There's a box available that you can pick up at this store, and people are participating at home and they're barbecuing, but we bring in a barbecue pit master. He's going to teach everybody some tips and tricks on how to barbecue it. And the focus with watch parties shifts. So in person, multi-venue, mobile events, you want everyone staring at the screen as much as possible. That's the focus of the event. Watch parties, people are naturally going to want to talk. So you want to enable them to talk and bring their attention back for moments. So the bulk of this beer awards is going to be music. The vast majority of it, music, maybe a bit of entertainment, a magician, comedian, whatever you think will be a good fit. And then we'll have a chime, remind everybody, hey, we're going to do a beer tasting now with this next beer coming up with this brewmaster. He's going to lead everybody through it. That's 2 to 5 minutes. And then it jumps back into music and everybody's sitting and enjoying and talking with their friends. Don't try to control everybody as much as you try to steer them. Give them gentle reminders, but understand people's natural tendencies, and you'll be a lot more successful in bringing them into where you want them to be. Culinary expose. So we do these culinary shows. It's a lot of fun to get people together and provide them with a box or an ingredient list that says, okay, have these wines and have these different ingredients. Now try this and eat this and do this. And oh, you can cook. And this is a fun example of a cooking show that you can do. And but create fun moments for everybody that's there to participate and cook. And just know that people are at home and they're looking for something to do. So cooking is always a big one. Everybody loves to eat. Everybody has to eat, and most people love to eat. And then one of the ones that we're working on right now, it's a bit of a crazier one, but we'll have a large boat, a houseboat. It'll have a culinary team on there creating all the food. And then all these boats will be anchored or docked. And then a small Zodiac will be running out everybody's dinner to all of these boats. So, and then everybody participates from their boats and gets to jump in. A little bit more complex, but again, do something that's interesting. Do something that's wild, and you'll get natural media connection for it. So, these are just a few of the opportunities that you can go in and really participate in. So we've tried to keep it short to offer as much Q&A time. I know it was kind of a blast of everybody. We're going to jump into Q&A, and then we'll do the live event case for anybody that's so bold here. We want to have an offer for everybody for coming. So if you book an event with us in the next 2 weeks, we're going to do 10% off. And the first one that signs up, we're going to actually upgrade you to our Curated Plus. So we've got a few different tiers of support that we give to organizations. And we're excited to say that the Trellis is coming out with a preferred partner pricing. So all of the events that we do, it's a different pricing model. So I'm going to jump it back over to Emily here to talk about the upcoming event.
Yes, thank you, Drew. That was fantastic. I'm happy you mentioned the preferred pricing too, because we have been working with Drew so long that he has earned him and his clients a nice little discount. So if you are looking for an event planner, I most definitely give Drew a double thumbs up. But I wanted to let you all know that our webinar that's happening 2 weeks today at the same time is actually going to be on event marketing tactics. So this is a topic that we know a lot of people are struggling with right now because we're getting a ton of questions around it. So I am just going to pop it into the chat, a link to sign up for that next webinar. So if you're interested, go save your seat right now. It's going to be Leanne from Inventa Sales and Promotions. She has a ton of experience working with quite a few charities on their event marketing. And she's going to go into multiple tactics as well as how to measure your success. Because it's one thing to just blast your event out there, but like Drew was saying, you always want to be learning and tracking what you've been doing so that for your next event, you know what is going to work well. And so Leanne is going to help you figure out, once you get your 100 tickets sales to the event, where did those people come from? Was it 100 from social media? Was it 100 from the emails that you sent out? And just trying to figure out how you can best spend your money and spend your time while you're marketing your event. So that is it from the Trellis side of things. Now, of course, if anyone ever has questions on the platform, you can most definitely email me or any of our team. But we are going to jump into some questions. The first one that I really wanted to ask is about the unique moments that you were mentioning, Drew. So this is a term that I feel like you have used most often compared to anyone else that I've been talking to, but these unique moments can look very different for in-person versus virtual. So I was hoping you could go a little bit more in depth on what that could look like if you're trying to combine them in a hybrid event. You had mentioned home deliveries. We had kind of talked about how you could kind of showcase unique moments to the people that aren't receiving the unique moment if it was hybrid. And so any kind of extra ideas or things that you have seen work for your clients?
Yeah, I think we do have lists of ideas, and I sit creatively and try to just come up with things, but almost all of our successful event ideas come from the specific event that we work with. And you need to think about who's watching and who's participating and who can you get to participate. So right from the start, when we talk about unique moments, it has to always come from a design phase. Spend more time up front thinking about how creative your event can be, and then you can generate a lot more excitement about the event. So A unique moment from a virtual event that we did was we had an event, and it was a long-standing event in Kelowna that an organization did here called the Mayor's Luncheon, and it was well attended. People came, they networked, and it was relatively low barrier to get involved, and they wanted to move it to a virtual space. The idea of just moving it to a virtual space wasn't translating. We did a bunch of testing. People weren't all that interested in just joining in to watch the mayor talk and then a webinar with the mayor. It wasn't singing quite well. So what we did is we converted that, and we took some inspiration from a YouTube series called Hot Ones. And we did the community hot seat, and the mayor sat and ate spicy wings, getting progressively hotter, all in the name of a charity that was supporting youth homelessness and youth addiction. And the questions got a little bit more intense, and the wings got hotter, and it was just fun. And people could actually peer-to-peer fundraise as well, where they pledged to raise some money, and then they got to eat hot wings on screen as well. I was one of the unlucky few that raised enough money to be on screen and sweat and nearly died while also trying to run the stream. But you need to think about what's going to grab the media's attention first. Then during the event, again, we looked and we said, okay, well, can we do some home deliveries? Well, that's a bit different. And but this one, we contacted it was around Christmas time. We contacted a dairy company nearby, and we said, okay, well, can we do a profile with you talking about eggnog and have fun with the eggnog as a part of it? And again, like seemingly separate things. You never would have thought to contact that company as a sponsor, but it just kind of fit the event. And when you jam it all together, it doesn't always flow. But these things, if you can create creative moments, then these are memorable. And so people are still emailing saying, can we do this again? Can we have more of this? And here's who you should do next. And I think part of it is punishment, although people like the fact that there was money raised for a good cause. But the home deliveries, the firefighters one. So think about firefighters, how fast can you get dressed into a firefighter's outfit? Like things like that are going to connect people into it. Maybe you've got, and I'm just coming up with this idea right now, but maybe you've got a bunch of turnout gear, which is the firefighter boots, pants, jacket, helmet, and the sponsors are there. Again, sponsor love is always a big one. We said at the start, 100% of sponsors would sponsor again. If you have a hot lead to get sponsors back again, that is the number one thing that you can do. But we had all these sponsors, or maybe we get all these sponsors. They try to get into the firefighter turnout gear really quickly, the suit, and people at home are using the poll feature to guess which one's going to be right, and just something like that where everybody's kind of participating in the way that they can participate in again. So, drop it in the chat about what your event is, and maybe that'll give some inspiration, but make everyone feel like the event's for them. Make the people at home feel like the in-person event is for them to enjoy, and make the people at the in-person event feel like the people home are supporting them and excited. And all those bridges are really going to make a lot of excitement and a lot of longevity for you to be able to run these events.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. Every single time we chat, you're like, oh, here's a new idea. Here's a new idea. Oh, that's fantastic. We got a message from Debbie. You had to jump back out to work, but she is actually wondering if you have any tips on where to begin with a virtual event. So you stressed today that with hybrid, you don't just want to think about, okay, how can I stream my in-person event? You want to think, how can I create a fantastic virtual event and bring as many people together in person as possible? So a couple details I have here is that their normal in-person conference is 3 days and includes a gala. And it happens in the summer. So do you have any tips? Maybe it's 3 to make it biteable and easy. But if someone has not yet gone virtual, what are kind of the 3 biggest things that you might want to focus on?
Conferences are a very interesting one. So you've got this really interesting difference in how people engage into it. And people are willing to engage virtually for a bit longer for conferences, but a 3-day conference can be a very long period of time. So you want to really think about, and I'm going to end the screen share here because it just says Q&A, but you want to think about this in a way of how are people going to engage and how are people going to stay seated for 3 hours? I'm working from home and I can't stay seated for 3 hours. So is it bite size? Is it moments throughout the day? Are you giving people some homework that they're working on? Are you creating immediate value? So we're working on a conference right now and we're going to have some networking sessions, but how do you prepare people for that networking session to get the most value out of it? We're working on a worksheet that people are going to take away, and we actually guide them through producing their own working content. Because if I'm working on my business, my charity, myself, while I'm attending, then I'm a little bit withdrawn from the stream into the fact that I'm doing something for myself, and you're going to get a lot more life out of it. But the 3-day piece is a big one. That's a tough one because people are a lot less likely to give up their time for virtual because those coffee breakouts and those things, those don't happen the same way, and people are going to be very different about how they engage. So I really invite people to think about how can the event honor the intention and get the most across. I could sit here and talk for 12 hours straight on virtual events. You aren't going to get much more out of it than me going topically over 30 minutes, and then maybe we have a follow-up. So how do you build off of it? How does each session build off of it so that you're okay, last session we talked about this, we've had some time, and now we're talking about this, and they're connected but separate. I wish I had the magic bullet for you on exactly how to consider virtual, but really put yourself in someone's shoes. That do you want to spend all of that time? And do you want to learn about these? Breakout rooms can be really talented ways of shortening an event while still having really fantastic marketing for it. So you can say your event includes boom, 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 like a huge list of opportunities. And maybe those are over five breakout sessions. Best case scenario is people are upset that they didn't get to attend all the breakouts. That's wonderful because it means that you had good content. They bought the ticket because they wanted to participate in those, but you forced them to choose the thing they want. And now you've got some content that lives on and it sits there, and you can say, hey, you want to, as part of this conference, you can actually participate or stream those breakout rooms again. And then one step further, if you provide people a resource afterwards, whether it's a forum or an opportunity for people to connect again and talk about different topics, join us again next week, and we're going to just get together and have a networking session, and people can talk about what they've learned and taken away here, and you can connect and learn more, and maybe another. So it seems like a surprise, but it's very much built into the composure of the event on where people are going to make the value come into it. And then the gala, just make sure that the gala is a lot of fun. Just really make sure that you create something that people are excited about, because you used to attend the gala because you were at the event. You used to attend the event because it was going to be a lot of fun. Are people that are coming and learning hard going to want to jump into another virtual gala? What is that gala going to look like? Is it short? Is it sweet? Is it exciting? Are you cooking? Like, so many pieces into it. There is a layer of complexity, and you just have to be thoughtful. We organically think about in-person events. We know it. We intuitively know what's going to work or not work to a degree. Virtual is a new space, and it'll just take a while for you to develop that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Drew. And just to extend that, Drew and I have talked a lot about the difference between entertaining people and engaging people in a virtual space. And so if virtual is very new to you or hybrid's very new to you, don't start by asking yourself the question, how can I entertain people? And like, how can I make them want to watch? Like, you don't make them want to watch. You want to try to find ways to actually get them engaging with what you're doing. So Debbie, I wish I had more context to the event that you were trying to do, but if you have some sort of theme or like Drew mentioned, like some sort of outcome that you're hoping to get from this gala, start by figuring out, okay, is it related to food somehow and we can get people building something? Is it related to firefighters somehow, and what kind of like games and can we create with that? And start with those pieces of figure out what makes sense for your organization on really unique ways to engage people, and then what's the best way to present that. A question that comes up very shortly after that is, how are we going to make this happen with tech? Some people are screaming about the rage on, oh, Zoom is dead, it's too boring. But Drew and I are definitely in the mindset that it is not the platform itself, but how you use the platform. People don't get Netflix fatigue. They just get bored of the shows that are on Netflix. And so it's not the platform itself, it's how you're interacting with people using the platform. So that's actually going to lead into our next question of, when you are inviting people to a space, which is now they're no longer walking through doors, which most people know how to do, it's now they are entering into this virtual world, this virtual space. So you mentioned a little bit about how you can communicate some expectations to people, but Drew, I'd love for you to go in a little more specific of, if you wanted to do an auction, if you wanted to do something where they had to engage with the tech, what are some ways that you can set up your audience for success with all the tech involved in virtual and hybrid events?
It starts before the event for sure. Setting people up for success is just communicating it out to them. Zoom.com/test will be one of your best friends, even if you're not using Zoom, oddly enough, because it still is going to trigger a lot of the, whether it's WebEx, Teams, Hopin, a host of other different streaming platforms. If you can have people go and test their camera and audio, if there's a camera need for them, but just know how to get into it. Think about how you motivate people into doing anything. Whether you've got kids or an animal that you've trained, you're not training kids, but raising them. You do certain things to try to encourage a certain level of behavior. And when we host live auctions, we have the entry of the auction. What about having it where you have everybody like, hey, every time you click on this, maybe it's a 25-cent bid or something, we're going to try to get this number as high as possible because this sponsor is going to match this number. So people are now motivated. They don't have to spend anything, but they have to use the app. They have to get on and they have to click and they have to register, and they, like, whatever steps you have, you need to have that prepared and you need to have them practice. If it's a new technology, bringing that in ahead of time is going to create some really strong moments for them to then participate later on. We made the mistake early on where we had an auction and we had everybody participating and we said it's live and bid now, and it was exciting. And we didn't notice in the chat that a lot of people were having trouble getting onto the app. So one of our teammates spotted it and they said, oh, everybody's having trouble. We just started. We didn't cue people up on how to use it. So we paused and we went and we pushed back the auction a little bit and we allowed people to have some entertainment and said, get on the app, it's going to start soon. But we were able to catch that in time. But know that you're going to have some uptake. You're going to have some delay in people onboarding onto any new platform. So you just want to give them that chance. And even better if you can motivate them into testing it ahead of time. Oh. If somebody can comment, I believe that Emily's frozen, and I believe that I might be frozen as well if we're on the same network here. But yeah, I know that we had some more questions from people on how to create virtual moments within hybrid events. I think we talked a little bit about that. I'm just scrolling up through the chat here to see what other pieces we have that people have been questioning here. Specific. So when you're looking at a hybrid event, we talk about that design piece of how hybrid translates into in-person. Coming back to those variants of hybrid events, when you're early on in the brainstorming phase, don't be afraid to throw out those crazy ideas. Maybe you have every penthouse suite in your city booked off and people are watching and they're all unique. Can you execute on that? That takes a different level of team. But don't be afraid of putting those big crazy ideas out there. Those are going to be things that really go in and push it to the next level. Be okay having crazy ideas early on. And then as you get further into that brainstorming and creative session, then start narrowing it down a little bit to be able to give people those opportunities to connect in there and to have something that they're going to be wowed by. You might realize that some of those are more possible than you imagined before. So I know I want to be respectful of everybody's time. If we've got some more questions, you can drop them in there. You're always welcome to send us an email, Drew at Stay at Home Fundraising. You can contact us and stayathomefundraising.com, sorry. You can contact us and we can continue the conversation and help out. But if there are no further immediate questions, then I think that we can cut that off. If anybody wants to participate in that live case study, we'll just give it a moment here and give you a chance to mention it in there. But otherwise, we wish everyone to have a wonderful day, and thank you very much for coming out. So appreciate this, and thanks for participating in our webinar about hybrid events today.